Hi there, my name is Hannah and I'm going to talk to you today about our Punnett Square and our Genome Generator dice kits. Together, these two kits form a really good basis to discuss genetics, specifically Mendelian genetics, and even integrate your different conversations about natural selection, genotype, phenotype, and so forth in the science classroom, and even bring it into the math classroom where you can do statistical analyses on different things. So let's talk a bit about what the two kits consist of. The Punnett Square dice kit consists of four-sided dice, where you read the value that's at the top of the dice when it is rolled, and it has two heterozygous dice as well as two homozygous, one dominant, one recessive. So it's a really good chance to get your students comfortable working with the vocabulary. And with this kit, you can do a lot of great statistical analysis where you're actually comparing the expected probabilities of Punnett squares with the actual probabilities of them. For instance, if you roll the offspring, you can say, okay, once when I roll homozygous dominant with heterozygous, I get a heterozygous. But that doesn't mean that's going to happen every time. So this is a really good chance in the statistics classroom to build towards the law of large numbers. And so your students can go through and actually run these simulations themselves and become familiar with any Punnett square combination using this kit. Now for the Genome Generator dice kit, it consists of six-sided dice with the letters A all the way through J, and on each dice there are two sides with homozygous dominant, two sides with homozygous recessive, and two sides that are heterozygous. And so therefore you can use these to generate genomes, which gives you a perfect chance to talk about variation within a species between different individuals and what traits they demonstrate and which they don't. It's also a good chance to discuss genotype versus phenotype, and if you're doing that, you can actually integrate that with our Creature Features kit, which you can see here behind me. And I'd suggest watching that video because there's a lot of really cool things you can do with genetics that integrate this kit with these two. More than that, you can also do even longitudinal studies and talk about genetic drift between species. So if you were to use this kit to generate a genome, and you actually roll one of each letter and then line them all up to see what your genome is for this specific individual of this species. You could even go in and have specific traits identified with specific letters here. So each gene could represent something. Perhaps a dominant A gene represents long legs versus the recessive would be shorter legs, long nose versus short nose. And sometimes the recessive gene might be better. So the recessive gene might be better camouflage. So you can go through and actually build all these different creatures and then randomly generate which ones would mate and go through genetic drift to see the evolution of the species with which ones survive and which ones don't, just based on the genetics. And you can even then integrate outside factors. So let's say a flood wipes through and kills out a whole type of flower that this flying organism is eating from. Now only the ones with the long noses survive. All of the short-nosed ones get removed from the population. One other thing you can do with this kit is if you're simply getting your students to practice filling out Punnett squares, is let them generate them on the fly by simply rolling the Punnett square that they're going to have to do. It makes an otherwise sort of boring activity a little bit more hands-on and fun for the students. So whatever you're doing with this kit, whether you are building genomes and analyzing them against environmental factors, trying to determine the most optimal combination of genes for a given scenario, or if you're running statistical analysis on Mendel's model of inheritance in your math classroom, you've got a good chance for integrated hands-on STEM fun with this that talks about genotypes and phenotypes, heterozygous and homozygous. You can even integrate this with some of the activities with our chromosomes kit and talk about the role that meiosis plays in the inheritance of genes. So as you can see, there's so much to do with these great kits, and we hope you enjoy using them in your classroom.